Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Apologies, I'm coming off of a cold here. How's everyone doing today? Ready for a Friday? Give me a big thumbs up, clap. Got a good weekend coming up for some of us in the US. We may or may not have a long weekend, depending on which industry you're in, tell you the truth. Gonna give it just a little bit of more time here and we'll get started. Um, Thumbs up. How's my voice? How is my video? Can you see the screen? Everything look okay? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Great, 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 great. Gotta give it just a few more minutes. We've got people rolling in here. I started the meeting just a minute early, so I want to give people time to attend and get settled. Maybe you're having a little lunch right now. If you're on the East Coast, if you're on the West Coast like myself, it's 9 o'clock. So still working on a cup of coffee, a little water, those types of things. Good to see some familiar faces on the call. Some of you I've worked with before, great to see. Some of you I know personally, also great to see. Great, 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 great. So I'm gonna give it just 2 more minutes here. It's 9:02, and we'll get kicked off today. Great to see everybody though. Um, Recording has started, just FYI for everybody. So if you don't want to be recorded, please drop off the call. And I've got some rules on the road. We're going to go through everything here for this new series. Some of you who attended the previous series are going to be familiar with the setup and the format. Just going to kind of let you know the lay of the land here. And I do have people coming in. It's great to see everybody. Still people coming in. Great, great, great. And just a note for everybody, just FYI, this is being recorded, those of you who just joined. Just so you're aware. Kind of have to say that these days, don't we? I do apologize for my voice. It is a little rough still. I am coming off of a cold. Thought I had COVID or something, but took all the tests and that is not the case. So that is good news. And we'll get started here in just like a minute or two. Pardon me. These change of seasons. It's getting on spring here in California. We had a super huge rainy burst there. Anybody who's on the West Coast can feel that one. We had a good solid 2 weeks of rain, and now it's starting to warm up and things are starting to bloom. So allergies are starting to kick off. All kinds of fun stuff is going on. All righty. I think we'll get started here. I'll continue to let people in as we go. Great to see everybody today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Compliance Meets AI series for 2026. We had such a great series last time. Just for everybody's edification, if you want to go back and if you missed any of those recordings that we had before, excuse me, you can come back and see all of them off this link. And I will send this out in an email to everybody too who registered and attended. That's also the place where you can register for the rest of the series. So we've got quite a few of these sessions lined up. I'll go through that here in a second. But just FYI, that's where you can go to see and register and get to the past recordings for these calls. And like I said, I will send this out via email to everybody. Excuse me. After the session today. I'll also send out all the relevant links that I will refer to and talk to, and I'll post in the chat as we go. But great to see everybody here today and ready to kick this off. So just a quick introduction. My name is Jay Cotton. I am a principal cloud solution architect here at Microsoft. And what that really means, for those of you who don't know, is that basically I'm a field engineer. I have been with Microsoft now 14 3/4 of a year. We actually keep track of that here at Microsoft, which seems like forever, honestly. It's like dog years here at Microsoft. Lots of hats I've worn over the years at Microsoft. I was originally an Exchange engineer. So everybody, when they started moving to the cloud, that's Well, actually, I started before that. I started back in Exchange 2003 days, actually 2002 or 2000. All those migrations from 2000, 2003, 2007, 2013, 2010, and basically getting people ready to migrate to the cloud. And then I spent a good portion of my first 5 years at Microsoft getting everybody migrated up to the cloud. I was based in New York City at the time. I now live in California. I'm outside of the Bay Area, um, just north of San Francisco a little bit. Also was a security engineer. I did security for a long time. And of course, now generative AI. I've also was an Entra or Azure Active Directory, Entra as they call it now, engineer as well. So a lot of hats at Microsoft, really been doing a lot of things here. Got to work with tons of customers from all sorts of industries, whether it's healthcare, where I work now, financial and services. I did that for a while. I worked with retail. When you're an exchange engineer and you do that kind of thing, you kind of work with everybody. So lots of different people out there, lots of different experiences. So it's great to see everybody here. I'm really glad to meet you and looking forward to a great series coming up. Just to lay the land for today, quick introductions. Kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm going to talk through the webinar series about how this is going to work, how things are formatted, and what to expect over the next 6 weeks. I think we have maybe 7. And then we're going to go into data security posture management for AI, DSPM for AI. Of course, Copilot, Copilot Studio, Copilot Agents, non-Microsoft AI products are really all the hot topics these days. I'm sure everybody on this call is working through some sort of generative AI product, whether you're working on the security side, whether you're working on the deployment side for Copilot, or other applications. It's really, it's what we're doing these days. It's pretty much everything at Microsoft, and I'm sure everybody on this call is working on it in some way, shape, or form. So this is the place to be, and we're really going to kind of talk about, soup to nuts, how we can use Microsoft Purview to really monitor and put guardrails around generative AI, Copilot in particular, but we'll talk about other products as we go. So today is the ESPM for AI. We'll talk quite a bit about that. We're going to take a review of what it is, and then we're going to look at some of the things that are new. I'm not sure if anybody's got a chance to watch any of the Ignite sessions that happened back in November, but a lot of good new announcements coming up, and we'll talk about some of those today in far as DSPM for AI goes. Bit of the rules of the road. Everybody's microphones are disabled currently. And when we get to the Q&A section, I'll undo that so everybody can talk. But feel free to put your questions in chat as we go. You can go ahead and just throw the questions in here. I'll answer those as we go. I'll probably read them out loud too, just to make sure everybody can hear the questions. So we'll talk about that. So I'll answer those as we go. Every session is being recorded, like I said. And just for a reminder for everybody, things are being recorded today. I will send out the recording to everybody who's attending today. So you'll have that in your back pocket. I'll also send out my slide deck for today as a PDF for everybody here. And I'll include all the links, those types of things out there as well. So you'll be able to find that. And I'll also send out a short survey at the end of the call today. Really short, 5 minutes, maybe not even 5 minutes, like 2-minute survey. Really, and that's, to make sure that we are presenting the right content, that, this is what you want to hear. And then we also take ideas. So other things that you want to talk about on the session. This is a session for this basically part of the year. So we call this Q3 at Microsoft. We're on the fiscal year, so it's our Q3. So we're going to do the session in Q3, and then I'm going to do another session in Q4. So that would be the probably April timeframe, April/May. So going to do on the session, be new topics. Depending on what the feedback is, we may do some review in case people want to see more. But we're going to have another session coming up, so keep your eye out for that. I will notify everybody via email who's on my attendee list when the new sessions come up. I'm also posting on LinkedIn, so if you're looking up on LinkedIn, you'll find me there. I'll paste my LinkedIn link in here for a second so you guys can follow me there too. I talk about all sorts of things on LinkedIn, not just Purview. I talk about Copilot and then just other pieces that I find relevant around security, Purview, Copilot, generative AI in general. So I'll post that here shortly as well. But there will be a survey, so please, when you get some time, fill that out for me. That would be much appreciated. Teammates. So I'm Jay Cotton. I mentioned that before. I do have a couple teammates that will be joining us in these calls, and that just isn't it. We've got my good friend Ben Perkins. He's a senior cloud architect here at Microsoft, and Kevin Wee. He's also another principal cloud architect here at Microsoft. They'll be presenting some sessions, and I've also got some special speakers lined up. I was chatting with some members of our product group earlier this week. They are going to do a couple sessions as well. So really great information. So please, please, if you haven't registered for all the sessions, please do. You can do it on the link in the chat window. Just an overview, what we're looking at. So we've got DSPM for AI, that's today. And all times, as you notice, are 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Like I said, I am in California time zone. So today's TSPM for AI. We're going to talk about data loss prevention for Copilot and generative AI products next week. Then we've got Defender for Cloud Apps and AI applications. That was one of the big requests we had from last session or last series. Everyone wanted to see a bit more Defender for Cloud Apps. We didn't have time to do it then, so we're going to do it this go around. So that's a really exciting topic coming up. Then we've got Insider Risk coming up as well. That's going to be on the February 6th. Then we're going to talk about network protection for AI applications. So that's a relatively newish feature. We released that back fall time frame, late summer, early fall. So we're going to have a presentation on that one. Super fascinating topic that's actually using a network device and how we can actually do DLP for Copilot applications based on the network traffic. So super, super great one there. And then our last two sessions are going to be presented by my good friend, Nick. His Nick Vargas Villa. He is also a California resident, good friend of mine, doesn't live too far from me. And he is an expert when it comes to agents. And we're going to talk about agent governance for two sessions. The first one will be around declarative agents and Copilot, what they call Copilot Studio Lite. Actually, they call it declarative agents again. They changed the name. They change names here at Microsoft often, as you well know. So that's going to be the first session. And the second session is about how we can govern Copilot Studio and AI Foundry agents. So really, really great topics around agents. Huge, huge topic. I'm sure everybody on this call is dealing with agent governance in some way, shape, or form at this point. It's extremely hot topic. So we're going to take a deep dive for two sessions for that one. And like I said, my good friend Nick is going to be presenting that one. And like I said, if you haven't registered for all of these sessions, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sessions. That was one off. So 7 sessions coming up. If you haven't registered for them yet, please do. It's on the link in the chat window, Compliance Meets AI 2026. Looking forward to it. These are great sessions. A lot of good learning to happen, whether you are brand new on the journey when it comes to Purview and generative AI, whether you've been doing it for a while. Excuse me. Lots and lots and lots of good learning there. And for those of you who just joined the call, I do apologize. I'm coming off a cold, so my voice is a little sketchy at the moment, but we'll be fine. Just a reminder, so this is a series about Purview, and we host this series. There's another series going on around Copilot Chat, and we're going to be adding Copilot agents into that series as well. My good friend, Robin at Microsoft is hosting a lot of those. I'm going to put the link for registration for those in the chat window as well. So please, please, please register for those sessions as well. Now, it's not really from the security side of the house. It's really about Copilot Chat, how we use it, how it can be used. And remember, there's a couple different kinds of Copilot out there these days. Microsoft is great at making things a little confusing at times. But we have the paid version of Copilot. And then we have Copilot Chat, which is included with your licensing. So if you have an Office 365 license, you also have Copilot. You have Copilot Chat. Now, Copilot Chat is, of course, grounded in web. It does have some limited graph ability. We call it Work IQ. And you're going to see more of that coming up in the future about how we can do a little more integration from the free version. Oh, I'm sorry, the free. I don't like using that word. The included version of Copilot. Let's say that. And how you can actually access some your work data. So that's going to be coming. You'll see that in the future months coming up. But just be aware of it. But it's a great series. I highly recommend it. Like I said, my friends all host that series, and you're going to see me on there too. So I'm going to be doing some presenting on that one around agents mostly. Do a lot of work in agents these days, as you can imagine. So I'll be presenting some sessions there as well, but they're really great sessions. And pass that around to anybody in your organization, anybody who's interested in Copilot Chat, whether they are using it, haven't used it, just want more information. They're free sessions for everybody, just like this one, and they're extremely valuable. So please take your time and register for that one. And like I said, share that link with everybody in your organization. Anybody who may be using it, if you have an AI committee or if you have a SharePoint site or you're using Viva Engage to promote Copilot, Get that word out there. They're really good sessions. Like I said, I attend them myself. I usually moderate them in the background and answering questions, but I will be presenting this time around as well. So great sessions in there, and please, please, please attend those as well. Last little piece here, and this is more of just a call out around additional training you can get on the Purview topics. Those of you who are Microsoft customers probably are aware of this, or you may not be, just depends. But Microsoft offers a lot of these classes. If you're a Microsoft customer, you do have the ability to take these classes. You see the OA, that means Onboarding Accelerator. So pretty much every single topic that we're going to talk about during this series is also available as a class that you can attend. They're usually, remote. So you set up a class. You talk to your account rep for Microsoft at your organization, he can get these classes, or he or she can get these classes set up for you. They're usually around 16 people, depending on the size. And a lot of them have hands-on labs as well. So you can actually work through these things live and in person. So talk to your account rep about this for Microsoft, whoever that may be. If you don't know who that is, feel free to drop me an email, jay.cotton@microsoft.com. That's me. I'm more than happy to kind of guide you along the path to find the right people for you to talk to if you do want to take these classes. They're really great classes. Like, for instance, the very top one, Securing Generative AI. We talk a lot about DSPM for that one. Data Lifecycle Management, we talk a lot about that as well. DLP, all these different pieces that are in there, we all have these classes for. So please, 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 if you're at all interested and you don't know who to go to, drop me a line. If you do know you're a Microsoft account rep, just talk to them. Like I said, I'm going to send this slide out. These slide decks out for everybody. So feel free to just use the slide deck and say, hey, you know what, Microsoft account rep, I want to get that onboarding accelerator for my team for information protection for Purview and how it relates to Copilot. Or I wanted to do an AI governance workshop when it comes to agents. So be aware you do have these options available for you. And they're really, really good classes. My team actually, or my friend of my team actually writes these. Okay. So another good piece of feedback that we had coming out of the last session is just a little more detail about what covers is with. And, this is kind of talking about the series all up. And this is a good slide just to kind of get you to understand, what we cover from a Purview perspective. And you can kind of see here all the different pieces that we're going to talk about during these sessions. Data lifecycle management, e-discovery, communication compliance, insider risk, sensitivity labels. So that's basically information protection, right? And you can see on the screen what we cover from a generative AI perspective. So you can see, so today, DSPM for AI, we cover Copilot. And that's Copilot both ways, whether it's Copilot paid or Copilot, the included version that comes through licensing. DSPM for AI has that visibility into those pieces in there. It also can cover Security Copilot if you're interested in Security Copilot. Now, I'm not really going to cover Security Copilot in this series. I do have a peer of mine who was working on a webinar series that will definitely cross-pollinate, I guess is the word. So when he gets that set up, and that's, of course, going to be a topic in here, we will definitely cover that, and I'll make sure everybody's aware when those sessions come up. And you can also see we cover agents. So DSPM-Ai covers agents as well. So this is just a good slide to kind of get an idea about what you're looking at this point and the different coverages that Purview has across all of these different Copilot experiences. Got a quick question on the chat here. I'm going to read this out loud, and thank you for the question. We have a question. We have 3 DSPM blades in Purview. DSPM Posture Management Classic, DSPM-Ai Classic, and DSPM Preview. We will talk about basically all of those today. The data security posture management, the classic one, the very first question on that one, I'll touch on briefly, but we're really going to focus more on DSPM for AI Classic and DSPM for AI, DSPM the Preview. As you do notice, it's a great question. Thank you for doing that, by the way. DSPM for DSPM Preview is, of course, in preview. We just came out with that. It was announced at Ignite. It hit my test demo tenants, probably about mid-December or so. So it's really new, very, very new. And for anybody who has experience with Microsoft products, when we do have something in preview, like it is right now, expect some changes. It's not going to be completely baked in quite yet. It's pretty much done. But we'll still have some things we need to do. So just expect some things possibly to change. So just keep an eye on that one. But great question. Thank you so much for that one. And just a little piece around other AI apps. So we do have be able to cover from Purview perspective, non-Microsoft or even other AI services. So for instance, Entra registered. So if you have an Entra registered AI app, and what that means is basically we have an AI app that is registered in Entra or Azure Active Directory, however you want to call it. And it runs there. So we have that ability to do this. That's things like, ChatGPT or other things that you can actually register within Entra for these other non-Microsoft or even Microsoft applications too. ChatGPT Enterprise, that's also covered via DSPM for AI and for all the other products too. I mean, DLP, Insider Risk can cover ChatGPT, communication compliance, e-discovery, data lifecycle management, can also cover ChatGPT, and then also Azure AI Services or Azure AI Foundry, however you want to refer to that too. We can also do that as well. And you can see, some of the great things we can do around data loss prevention when it comes to these particular products as well. So that's going to be covered next week. It's going to be a great topic. I hope you're all going to join us for that one. My good friend Ben Perkins is going to be presenting that particular session for us tomorrow or next week. It was a great session last year, and I'm expecting it to be another great session this year. So be aware of that one. And then just a little bit around licensing. People always ask me this. And again, I will send this slide out for you so you can kind of refer back to this one. But you can see most things covered by E3 for a lot of things with DSPM for AI. Prompt responses, if you want to be able to see prompt and responses back for DSPM for AI, that's talking to E5. If you're not an E5 customer, that's okay. Not a big deal. I do recommend moving up to E5 if at all possible, just because you get so much more functionality out of Purview when it comes to generative AI, when you're at E5 as opposed to E3. But you can kind of get a lay of the land here. So a lot of things that we're going to talk about today moving forwards are going to be mostly E5, depending on the technology. There will be some things for E3 here and there. Feel free to ask questions as we go. But just want to kind of give you a lay of the land, what we're looking at as far as licensing goes for Purview as it relates to Copilot and other AI products as well. So keep an eye on that one. Okay, so now we're going to talk about DSPM. What if most users are on E5, but not all? We have E1 for frontline workers. Great question. So in a perfect world, we want everybody to be E5. But if you do have a mix of E5 plus, other licenses, as long as you as the person setting this up, if you have an E5, then you can set these policies up. And it'll work, I will say. But I would just be mindful of that one. These things will work, DSPM will work, and all those things will work. You'll still see the prompt and responses as you go through, even if that person has an F1, as you say, or an E1 for frontline workers. So you'll still be able to see the prompt and responses going through. There are some functionalities when I think about things like communication compliance, insider risk, that it may not work properly if that person doesn't have an E5 license. But for the most part, if you do have E5 for most of the organization, everything we talk about is going to be functional. So great question. Thank you for that, my friend. Okay, so let's get into it. That's all my slide decks for today. Those of you who were on the series last year know we are very not slide heavy on these series. We tend to focus more on the actual product itself. So let me go ahead and bring us up. So here we are in Purview. And let me get out of this really quick. Oh, there we go. And we're home. So those of you who aren't familiar with Purview, most of us, I'm guessing, are. If anybody isn't really that familiar with Purview, this is the new interface. It's been live for quite a while now. When you log into it, it'll give you the options of saying, hey, do you want to use the classic or the new? Use the new. Classic is still there, technically. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that we have in the new interface, and some things you might not see. So just be aware of that one. And if you're not using the new interface, please do. And you'll see the navigation pane. And this is all the things we're going to cover during this series. We're going to talk about communication compliance. We're going to talk about data loss prevention. We're going to talk about, of course, DSPM. We're going to talk about information protection. We're going to talk about insider risk and some other things that aren't on here, like the agent sessions. We're going to talk about those too. So this is kind of the look. And this is what we have in here. So we have DSPM Preview and DSPM for AI Classic. I'm going to start with Classic. and just kind of walk you through that, how it looks. But we do have the preview. And like I said, the preview is relatively new. We announced it at Ignite, and it came live for the most people in December. I believe is when it really started rolling out. Pretty much everybody should have this at this point in your tenant. Most of the customers I work with, and I do work with healthcare pretty much exclusively these days. So hospitals, payer providers, all these different pieces, and pretty much all the customers I talk to do have this now. So just be mindful of that one. If you don't see it quite yet, you will very soon. It may not have completely rolled out, but I do believe on the roadmap that it does say it's rolled out for everybody at this point. So I'm going to start with AI Classic, or DSPM, the Classic version. So this is what we released a while ago. This has been around for quite a long time. Notice when I first click on it, it says, you know what, go look at the new one. And I'll talk about the new one here in a second after I go through this one. So it does guide you towards there, and there's a lot of functionality in there that's really, really interesting, and we'll talk about that here soon. So this is just the basics. This is the actual Classic, what we had before. So notice you have some of the prerequisites. This is a brand new tenant. So this tenant is brand new for me. At Microsoft, we have trial tenants and demo tenants that we get, and we have them for basically a year, and then they restart you. Mine always restarts right around January. So when I get back to the new year after the holidays, I have to spin up a new tenant. So this is my new tenant. So you can see a lot of things are pretty blank, which is great for our experience for today. We'll walk through it from get-go, soup to nuts, all the way through. A couple things to talk about on this page. First off, notice the prerequisites, getting started. Activate Purview Audit. Now that's something that's done for everybody. You don't have to worry about that one. If you have a tenant, it's been turned on. So that's a kind of a gimme. The browser extension, that's another good part. So this one is, I recommend it. I recommend the browser extension for everything. There are certain features and functions within DSPM for AI around Activity Explorer that you don't necessarily have to have the browser extension for. It'll still collect data, but to get the full feature set around Purview when it comes to Copilot and other non-Microsoft generative AI products, we do want that browser installed. Just click here and you can actually go through here. I'm going to drop this into the chat window for you, but it walks you through the actual configurations, how to set this up. There's a couple different ways to deploy it. It can be done via Intune. It can be done via group policy. So a couple ways to do that. So just be aware of that. Did that paste? Looked like it did, but then it didn't. There we go. So be aware that's there, and you have that available for you. It's good learning and just a good way to really understand and get that out there. And it really does improve your experience, not just with DSPM for AI, but it also improves experience if you want to do things like Defender for cloud applications, all these different things that it really kind of boil in there. And if you want to use non-Microsoft generative AI and use Purview on that, the Purview extension is pretty much a must at that point. Other pieces, onboarding the device into Purview. I'm also going to drop this link in here as well. This is something, again, for best features and functionalities, we do want to get this uploaded or get these devices joined into Purview. If you happen to be a MDE client, so Microsoft Defender for Endpoints or XDR solution, if you have that already deployed, then you don't have to worry about onboarding devices. They're onboarded already for you at that point. But if you don't use MDE, if you use a non-Microsoft XDR solution like CrowdStrike or whatever, then you do need to onboard those devices. Again, that can be done via Intune, also can be done via group policy. But I put that link in there for you as well, so you can reference that at your leisure. And then extending your insights data discovery, that's just something you turn on as you go. Super easy, just kind of make the click and it's off and running. So that's kind of the baseline. And make sure everybody's aware of it. People tend to miss that quite a bit. They just kind of get going. I have customers, they reach out to me and say, Jay, I've turned on Insider Risk and I'm not really getting any telemetry. And I'm like, well, have you done the prereqs, X, Y, and Z? It's like, no, we haven't. I'm like, no, that's why. That's really why you're not getting that much data, because you really haven't followed the recommendations about getting this set up properly. So be aware of that. But the main things to remember is A, get that Purview extension on all of your devices, and then get those devices onboarded into Purview as well. So those are kind of the ways. But let's walk around DSPM for AI just a little bit. So first off, you can see the navigation pane. We have recommendations. So this is just kind of a guide, let's say. And I will say, when we switch over to the DSPM for AI, the ones in preview, sorry, not Purview, preview, it's a little more verbose, I would say. It gives you some really, really great steps to follow. These are also good. So basically, and if you click on these, you can see each one kind of gives you a guided walkthrough about how to do it. So this is how to govern ChatGPT. how do we use Purview to actually look at ChatGPT data prompts and responses going back and forth. So it gives you a nice guided walkthrough about how to do this with all the relative links that you would need to actually start things up and get them running. So, and that's for all of these. So you can see here, this one's one about unethical apps. It's talking about insider risk. And notice you can even create policies directly from here. So if I click here, it would actually create a communication compliance policy for me. So it's actually looking for, at this point, unethical AI interactions, or even things like prompt injection attacks. Lots of different things you can do with communication compliance and insider risk combined. And my good friend Kevin will be talking about that in a later session. But just for your edification, just know that you can create these policies directly from here, or you can also do it from the actual interface. If you go to communication compliance, you can create it from there. So just a reminder that that is there for you. We also have the reporting feature. So reporting really kind of goes back, and this is just your dashboard. My tenant is a little new, as you can tell, so I don't have a ton of activity, but I do have some. And you can see, some of the testing I've been doing all sorts of different prompts. I've created a few agents. I've been using the researcher and analyst agent. Those also, so those are called first-party agents at Microsoft. We have, what is that, 8, 9 of those now? Researcher and analyst are probably the two big ones, but we have things like prompt coach, writing skills, all these other first-party agents that Microsoft has. And Purview, and in particular, DSPM for AI, also captures that activity. So it's not just Copilot, Copilot Chat, or Copilot agents. It's also these, or declarative agents. It's also these first-party agents that Microsoft puts out. So those are also available for you as well, and you can see that data. But you can see the different things we have here. Of course, there's your Microsoft activity stuff. We have our other AI apps. And then you can also see all the different sensitive information types that are being interacted with by Copilot during my testing. And you can see here, as you can kind of get the gist, I do a lot of testing when it comes to healthcare. There's a great new feature in DLP if you're not aware. Hey, Kevin. It's a great new feature in DLP that just recently dropped, and we will talk more about this next week, so I'm not going to take Ben's thunder. But we do have the ability to now create DLP policies based on sensitive information types when it comes to Copilot, Copilot Chat, and Copilot agents. If you remember previously, we could only do that via sensitivity label. So that sensitivity label had to be applied to a particular document. And then if I tried to, and we have to set it up, say, okay, right, in the DLP policy, if this label is on this document, then we cannot basically reason over it via Purview, which is great, but it has challenges, right? So you had to have labels set up, and anybody who has set up labels at scale in an enterprise, no, that's not an easy task. There's a lot of steps to it, mostly around end user communication, or if you're using auto labeling, that makes it a little easier, but there's still a lot of end user communication that has to happen. So the project takes a long time. Now we can use SITs, so you can use SITs. The one I use mostly is medical terms and conditions for demonstration purposes, but I can just say in my DLP policy, hey, we have this SIT, whether it's social security numbers, it could be a custom SIT, it could be, that's a good one, Joel. It could be, a EDM. It could be a custom SIT that you design based on regex. Those will actually stop that prompt. So when I set those policies and DLP sees, hey, Jay Cotton is putting in a bunch of, I don't know, patient IDs or MRN numbers just coming from a healthcare. If I'm putting in financial statements, you're talking from a different industry, whatever that data is that you really want to protect and you have a sensitive information type for, Copilot will stop it. It'll basically say, you know what, when you're trying to do research on, or you type in an MRN number, I'll just use that example, into Copilot or Copilot Chat or an agent, it'll actually block you directly in the GUI. So it'll actually stop you. And we're going to talk more about that next week. It's going to be an exciting topic, so just be aware. But you can actually see, and you'll see some of this in the DSPM preview as well. So know you have this in here. It's great reporting. It gives you a lot of different insider risk. A lot of different information around different pieces, whether those people have been identified as an insider risk, so risky behavior when they're doing copilots. And risk behavior, my good friend Kevin, who's on the call right now, is going to talk about that in the upcoming session. But risk behavior when it comes to generative AI can be a lot of different things. So that's going to be a great topic. So it also brings all this type of information up. And then you can even go deeper. You can view details, look at recommendations about it. So the reporting is a good little step and check in for what you want to see. I'm going to pop over to Activity Explorer really quick. I'll go to policies at the end here. But when it comes to Activity Explorer, this is really where you see all this great information when it comes to how people are using Copilot. Or Copilot Chat, or an agent. You can see here, new agent. This is Jay Codden created an agent. I created an agent to track NFL football. I'm technically not a Niners fan, but I do live in California, so I'm kind of rooting for them. However, I am an IU fan. Any IU fans in the audience today? Big game on Monday. Looking forward to it. But I created a quick little agent to go through, go Texans. Indeed, I don't want to get into football. I don't want to get into football. Technically, I'm a Colts fan, just for everybody's edification, but we fell apart at the end of the year. So what are you going to do? But I've got the Niners, so I'm going to root for them. But you can see all this great information in here. And I'll do a little bit of dive. You can see Copilot Studio. This is me creating a Copilot Studio agent. You can see here, this is the analyst agent. So this is one of our first party agents. And the great thing you can see about this, kind of look at the actual overall categories. So you can see, what it did. Did it interact with the sensitive information type? I did. I had quite a few of those. I was putting a bunch of different medical terms and conditions in there. You can see just the interaction with the agents. You can see the details. And then when you click on, you can actually see the information that's being passed back and forth. So if I go to, let's just pick one here somewhere. It doesn't really matter which one. And this will also show you information about not only whether it's Copilot, but it'll also show you Copilot where what application was using it. So notice this is all Copilot Chat. I've been doing a lot of testing with chat, especially around that new DLP functionality. That's really what I've been focusing on because I really want to, it's a huge impactful thing. It's important to a lot of our customers. So I've been really kind of going through and doing a lot of that. But when I click on any of these, you can see the prompts, let this build, and the responses. So you can actually see what the user put in for that particular prompt, and you can actually see also what Copilot came back with it. I'm going to see if I can get one that's going to load a little faster. Let this one go. This is a little shorter. Analyst, when you use Analyst, it creates a lot of different data and activity going on. So now you can see what's going on. This is me telling Copilot it's not correct. And I do recommend that for anybody. If you do get a weird response for Copilot, tell it it's not right. And give it a thumbs down too. I'm not sure if you're familiar, if you're mindful of the thumbs up, thumbs down when you get Copilot responses, but if it doesn't get it right, give it a thumbs down. But you notice here, this is me testing the agent out. I was kind of messing around with some different options, but you can see this is not the correct information. And then it gave me the response back. So thanks for catching that. Since I can't pull ESPN.com directly, blah, blah, blah. I had to do a couple modifications to the agent to make it work properly. But it's a great example about how you can use this to actually see not only those prompts and the activity where it's coming from, but you can also see, the prompts and responses that are coming back from Copilot. And again, this works across Copilot, the paid version, Copilot Chat, and Copilot Agents. So when you set up your agent, and this is an agent, this is exactly what you're looking at. And notice you can see where I'm accessing it in. I'm using Copilot Studio. Technically, this is what we call a declarative agent. So I'm not using the full-blown Copilot Studio license. I'm using what it's a declarative agent. They used to call it Copilot Studio Lite. They changed the name again on this. I think I mentioned that before, but they do that all the time. But you can see there. Now, if I were accessing this in Word, or if I was accessing this in PowerPoint, if I was accessing this in Excel or whatever it may be, it would actually show where that app is accessed in. So it's a great way to get this data and really kind of keep an eye on things. And notice it also tells me what type of sensitive information that I actually accessed in it as well. So a lot of good stuff in there that you can see. Great question. I've got a question here regarding the logs and auditing. Is there anything planned on the roadmap for anonymization, basically of names from user prompts, particularly for HR scenarios? Admin reviewing logs and interaction details, accessing personal information context based on full names. I don't know of anything on the roadmap for that quite yet. We do have that functionality in things like insider risk and communication compliance. I will check with our my PG contacts for that one. And I'll get us a response when I send the email out later today. But it's a great question. I don't know anything yet on the roadmap for that. But we'll see what happens. It's a good ask, honestly. And what they're basically talking about, you can see here, it does call me out. So this is admin. This is the admin account I'm using. And it's literally called admin. So that's why they bring the name out. So we'll do some more investigation and we'll get back to you on that one. It's a great one. And I've got your name here, so I can directly reach out to you. You're on the attendee list, so I can send you an email too as well. So I'll see what I can do about that one. So this is the Activity Explorer. Great, great, great information in here. And then you can filter. So notice you want to filter by different apps. So this would be the app there. You can see Copilot Studio. I haven't really done a lot of testing in this tenant yet with things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the rest, but you'll have that in there and you can actually filter on that. So for instance, if I just want to see all Copilot Studio, I can just do that. Then you can look by user. So if I want to look at a particular user to see their activity, or I can even say, you know, what kind of sensitive information type are people interacting with? So for instance, if I want to see diseases, just only diseases, I can apply that, or better yet, for this one, medical terms and conditions, I hit apply and I can filter on it directly from there, and I can see which prompts are actually using, in this case, medical terms and conditions. But this could be any sit you have in your tenant that's being used, it's been accessed via Copilot. And you think about it all different ways that can work, right? It could be somebody typing in, hey, what's the definition of blood pressure or something? All sorts of different things. You ever look at the medical terms and conditions, a huge list. But you can actually filter on those and kind of get that. And that, again, can work with anything. And as you notice down here, here's actually one with Word. And then you can also see my DLP matches. So this is me testing out that new DLP functionality. You can see here's a rule match for DLP. This is basically, you can see which one it does. It calls out all medical terms and conditions. That's the actual sensitive information type that this DLP policy is working with. And that's the one that I triggered to make this actual DLP rule actually come into effect. But again, don't want to talk too much about DLP. Next week, put a teaser out there for my good friend Ben Perkins. You're going to love his session. So that's the Activity Explorer. A lot of great data in there as well. Last piece, data risk assessment. So interesting topic, always. So data risk assessment is basically looking at your tenant. And in particular, SharePoint data. You can do customizations. You can point it at certain SharePoint sites. You can even point it at OneDrive if you so choose. But what it does is it looks at the most top 100 used SharePoint sites, or accessed is a better word for it. Top 100 accessed SharePoint sites in your organization. And it does a scan to see if things are labeled, what kind of sensitive information is in those sites. So it gives you all of this data that's in there, and it kind of breaks it down for you. And then you have the ability to go through and make changes. You can go through and lock down a website or lock down a SharePoint site. So there's a lot of different things you can do directly from here to help you protect that data. And that's really, you know, if you're familiar with SharePoint Advanced Management, this is kind of SharePoint Advanced Management on a light scale. It does use SharePoint Advanced Management in the back end. If I do want to lock down a site, you'll be guided over to the SharePoint Advanced Management portal. And remember, if you have Copilot licenses, you do get SharePoint Advanced Management for the most part. Not all of it, you get most of it, at least the parts that are very relevant to Copilot, like being able to block sites and all the rest, for free. So you don't have to pay for SharePoint Advanced Management if you have Copilot licenses. So keep that in mind. If you have questions about that, we did a session on it last year, or last season. Go back to the recordings. I'll send those recordings out. It was the very first session hosted by a good friend of mine. It's a really great topic just to kind of look at those things that we have to consider when it comes to making sure our SharePoint sites are healthy and protected in the proper way. Basically, what we look for is over permissioning. We don't want to be sharing with everybody, right? So remember, Copilot runs in a user context. So if I have access to a SharePoint site, technically I can reason over it with Copilot, because that's the way it works. It runs as me. So SharePoint Advanced Management and Data Risk Assessment can help you monitor those sites and then lock them down. So you don't want, you know, there's sites out there like your HR sites and your intranet. Of course, everybody has access to it, and we want that. And we want Copilot to be able to access that. I mean, one of the best uses I have for Copilot is I ask it questions all the time about, hey, when are Microsoft holidays? Or what's the newest insurance policies for Microsoft? Or blah, all this other stuff. And that all comes off of our HR site, which we have access to. But if you have things like your C-suite SharePoint site or your actual HR department SharePoint site, we don't want everybody having access to that, right? And that's really where data risk assessment can come into play with SharePoint Advanced Management. Quick pause. Questions around DSPM-Ai, the classic. This is what we've had for a long time. Okay, now let's jump over to the DSPM in preview. Now, this is preview. I have to say that 9 times, because it is in preview. But it's a lot of great features and functionalities in there. And I would say, even for me right now, some of the features aren't quite live yet, I would say. This is rolling out. Most people should have it. I do expect changes to come in the future, upcoming weeks and months. They will be tweaking it. I don't know quite the GA date on it yet. We will talk about that in the course of these series when I find out a little more concrete information. But it is in preview right now. And what that means, it doesn't mean you should be scared of it. You can use things in preview at Microsoft. But it's something that, depending on your organization, it may not, and I have a lot of organizations that actually don't deploy solutions until they go GA because things change, that sort of thing. Or they may even pull something back and redo it because that's the point of preview, right? So we want to get out there, we want people to use it, and we want them to get feedback. Whether that's to your account rep, whether that if you work with a Microsoft security person like myself or Kevin or Ben, give the feedback to those people. We then in turn bring that back to the product group, and they make changes. So that's why it's in preview. But I do recommend using it and kind of get through there. But just from the overall front landing page, this is what we have. And you can see a lot, excuse me, of what we have in here. We have a lot of different data. So, classified data. Again, this is a new tenant, so I don't have a lot of labelings going on. But we do have, it'll show you all the different data that has been labeled out there. It'll also show you things that are covered. So things that are covered by data loss protection policies. It'll show you data protection. So anything that you have out there that may be out there from an alerts perspective, it'll give you a kind of an overview of that one. It also goes through and gives you these objectives, quote unquote, they call them objectives now, about things to do. This is a lot like in the classic version where we had that recommendations. This is kind of the recommendations, and I'll go into objectives here shortly. But you can basically click on these and say, you know what, what's the remediation plan for prevent data exposure? And it'll walk you through. And you can even create policies directly from here. So for instance, you can see create a custom policy in DLP to help you protect that data. So it talks about data protection quite a bit. It talks about IRM, so help to create a policy in IRM. So what it does is it kind of gives you this guided walkthrough about how to set up these policies. And it actually tells you, it looks at your tenant and says, you know what? You don't have this quite yet. You haven't turned on DLP. You're not using insider risk. And it'll give you kind of those pointers about how to do it. And you can even see the policy. So if you don't even want to create the policy quite yet, click on policy details and it walks you through it. So you can see here, I've got, it's looking for content contains SITs, and I can design it directly from here. Which SIT do I want to use? I tend to use medical terms and conditions a lot just because it is relevant to my role, but I can actually set up my policy directly from here. Which users are in scope? I can choose all users. I can choose every single person in the organization. The nice thing about these policies, whether it's DLP, insider risk, communication compliance, all these policies that we set up to be able to monitor and control generative AI apps, they're very easy to test. You can just, and I go this all the time with my customers, it's like, you know what, let's take our SOC team or our compliance team, whoever that may be. Let's apply that policy to us first. Kick the tires. I do recommend you have a Copilot license. I will say it's kind of hard to test without a Copilot license, but you can test like Copilot Chat and stuff if you don't have a license. But it's good to have a license so you can actually kind of run this through. But you can pick 5, 6, 10 people, use it, and then scale it out. You don't have to go boom, bang, all at once, all at one time. In fact, I recommend against that usually because we want to, understand how the alerting works, what our triage is for these, set up our own internal FAQs to make sure we know how to deal with these alerts, when they come in, what to look for. So it's great to be able to have that granularity to be able to deploy these in a controlled manner. And you'll see this on a lot of the objectives. So here's preventing sharing of oversharing of data, same type of thing. You can see the policies in there. So there's a lot of different things you can do directly from this particular landing page. So great functionality. And like I said, this is in preview. So this may change a little bit. Great article here. I'll drop that in the chat window for you as well, just about the updates that we have going through. And again, I will include all these links in the email I will send out after class today, or after the session. But there's a quick link for you about the new preview version of DSPM for AI. Good read. When you go through the article, you'll see there's still missing some things in there. It's not really extremely verbose because it is in preview and they're working out some of the documentation still too. So keep an eye on that one, bookmark it, in fact, so you can check back on it as things progress. And of course, we're going to talk about it in the series. Anything that may come up over the course of these 7 weeks that's new, we're of course going to call it out moving forwards. But you also have the overall objective page. So this is all these different objectives that you can go through, and you can kind of see same sort of thing, data protection or data discovery. You can see data discovery in your organization, help view the remediation plans. So this is where you can also set up DSPM. So this is the scan, the data assessment scan. You can set up the policy details here. You can kind of see what it is and then set it off. And remember that DSPM data assessment is going to run weekly. So it's going to look at your data, call out those top 100 sites, see what if things are shared with everybody in the organization. It's going to call out things like sensitive information types, so you can have an eye on it. And that runs weekly. So it's a great little tool to have behind you. And you can see right now I have 682 files that are classified, but they're unlabeled. So I have not set up labeling yet in this tenant because it's new. But it calls that out immediately for me, so I know exactly what I'm looking at. The Copilot prompts here, not going to go into this, but this is Security Copilot. So this is something that you do have to have Security Copilot active in your tenant to do so. A good note about that one, and this is fresh off the press too, if you are an E5 customer, I will say, and you want to have Security Copilot, you do get a certain allocation now of, they call them SCUs, but they're credits. So they're compute units to use basically Security Copilot. So if you're an E5 customer, you will get Security Copilot kind of for free, not for free, you're paying for an E5, of course, but you will get certain number of, let's just call them credits for nothing else, a better term, of Security Copilot. If you're at all interested in that, if you are an E5 customer, talk to your Microsoft account rep. Ask them about it. They'll know. It's rolling out now. It's not for everybody. It's not just hitting everybody all at once. I have one customer that we have been going back and forth with their product group because they really want to try it. They're a big E5 customer. They're huge users of E5 when it comes to Purview, and they want to be able to use Security Copilot to help them triage alerts. So, and that's the biggest use in Purview for Security Copilot, is to help you kind of analyze all the different alerting that's out there. There's also uses for it in eDiscovery to help you come up with eDiscovery queries and such. But just be mindful that you will be getting that soon if you're an E5 customer. Talk to your Microsoft account rep. If you don't know who your account rep is, talk to me, drop me an email, and I'll help you kind of navigate that landscape. It's kind of off topic there, but it is a big announcement. I wish I could get it, but Microsoft doesn't give it to us for some reason. So those are the objectives. And again, this is kind of a guided walkthrough. AI observability. Now that's hard to say on a Friday morning, I would say. And this is where we can see a lot of data that's coming out there. We can see data that things are coming into. I don't have much in here, of course, just because it's my new tenant. I'll have more coming up. But you'll see things like the sensitive information. You'll see how agents interact with it. You're going to be able to see Copilot activity. You're going to be able to see non-Microsoft generated AI products if you have that set up as well. So you're going to see a lot of these different pieces that are actually in there around how these agents and how these AI applications are being used in your tenant, whether they're used with sensitive information types, whether they're being used with labels. You can kind of see all the different pieces that we have in here. It's going to talk about, it'll show up insider risk policy. If people are doing things via Copilot, Copilot Studio, agents, whatever, that may be risky. Maybe they're asking things that you shouldn't ask generative AI, basically. For the most part, those of you who've used Copilot, you know about it. We have pretty good guardrails in place. If you try to make it do something really bad, it won't do it. It's going to tell you just, no, I can't do that. But there's gray areas. And the gray areas for me, things around patient data. That's what I'm concerned about all the time, because that's kind of like the gold standard and the jewels of the kingdom when it comes to healthcare. So you'll be able to see that type, people interacting with sensitive data when it comes to patients, those types of things as well. And you'll also be able to see other data loss protection policies in effect. So all these are going to be built into the AI observability piece. And then we have Discover. And Discover is pretty much, we saw the Activity Explorer on the other page. Discover is going to be similar to that. So first off, you can see apps and agents. So if you have any apps deployed, so for instance, you can see the ones that I have set up so far. I have Copilot Studio, so I'm using Copilot Studio. You can see the policies applied for it. So I've got one policy that's covering Copilot Studio. I've got two policies that's covering Copilot. So that's going to be Copilot Agents, Copilot Chat. So you can see these in here, and you'll be able to see the kind of traffic and data. You can see here on Copilot the testing I've been doing, and just here's 266 responses that I did over the weekend, last week, beginning of this week. So it actually shows you those numbers, how many users are in there, what are those prompts. So a lot of good information directly from here. And then you can even see some of the agent piece. But if you flip over to agents, this is where we have a lot of good data about agents. You can see the most popular agents. So you have all these agent reports right here. Of course, you can see this particular agent. This is the one I just created. This is the NFL one. It's the one I did for the NFL tracking. So you can see there's that agent there. I can click on it. You can actually see, what kind of policies apply to it. So I've got a data protection policy. I've also got a compliance policy. And you can see, in risky prompts, I've been kind of trying to do bad things with it, basically, just so I can get some data on there. So you can go there, and then you can go directly to the policy too. So I click on view policy. It'll take me directly to that particular policy within DLP, so I can look at it, do the rest. You'll also see things like insider risk policies in here and communication compliance policies as well. And if you are using, and we're not really going to cover this in the series, but if you're using data retention, so if you have retention policies set up for Copilot to keep those responses and those prompts for X amount of time, you'll see that data in here too as well. And like I said, I'm not going to touch too much on retention policies, but if you haven't set up retention policies for Copilot, please do. Most organizations align it with their email retention policies. Not sure why, they just do. But you do have that ability. And that basically gives you that protection. Somebody is doing something wonky with Copilot or one of the other products, and you need to put an e-discovery on them, put a hold on them, pull that data back, give it to legal. That's what we want those retention policies for. Because it is possible for a user to go through and delete their Copilot prompts and responses on the back end. But if they're covered by a retention policy, even if they delete it, we're still storing that data in their mailbox. So beware of that one. But you have the agent reports, really great data in here. You'll see most active agents, most recent agents, agents with the most users, and even agents that are high risk. So that would be combining that with communication compliance and insider risk policies. If people are, maybe they're trying to jailbreak or do a prompt injection, who knows what it may be. The landscape out there for what people can do with AI and some things they can do bad is pretty long. But you have all these great reports built in so you can actually look at it. Fantastic stuff there. Activity Explorer, this is just like we did before. So I'm not really going to dive too deep into this one. This is the same data from Activity Explorer. So you can look and see, here is, excuse me, basically the exact same data that we had in the Classic console is now here. You can see, here's my agents, all that same data. You see the prompt and responses directly from here, just like we did in the other piece as well. So you can see here, show me the latest scores from ESPN.com. I can't ESPN.com because I didn't set up the agent properly. I did fix it. And now again, you can see the workload. You can see the agent names, new agent. But all that data is purposed here as well. And what I'll say about DSPM, the preview function, this is probably going to be the landing page. This is going to be DSPM moving forwards. The classic interface, I'm sure, is going to go away at some point. The reason I say that is just because I've worked with Purview so long now. I've been working with Purview since it was the Security and Compliance Center, so it was just one thing, and we didn't have much in there, honestly. And eventually, we broke those out into two separate. We have the Security Center, and now we have Purview. And we did the same thing, right? We put out the Security Center in preview, and then we started putting out more functions and features in the preview pieces, and eventually the old portal went away. So that's how I see it happening. We're going to see this kind of go away, or the classic go away, and this is going to be our new reality. So get out there, use it, test it, do what you need. We're probably going to run a little long today, if that's okay with everybody. I've got a couple more things to show you, but if you do have to drop off, that's fine. I've got about 3 minutes left on the hour, but I'm probably going to just go for a bit longer just because we're here. And I had to do the big intro in the beginning. So that's the Activity Explorer, same piece. You can also see that type of information. You can see my DLP rule matches. You can see when I'm interacting with a particular sensitive information type, and those same types of things go as well. So you can see agent name, it'll show all the different agents you have out there. Now, these would be agents that are first party. So this is analyst. So this is a Microsoft created agent. This is my agent that I created, the new agent. So you're going to see all the agents that have been created, whether that's via Copilot Studio, whether that is via declarative agent on SharePoint or the rest, or even doing things like analyst or researcher, those first party agents that Microsoft puts out there. You're going to be able to see all these. You'll even be able to see agents that are published via Azure Foundry as well. Now, there may be a pay-as-you-go model involved with that one, but you can also, of course, search by user and search by sensitive information type. So all these can really kind of come in there. And then you see, how is the app actually accessed? You can see Copilot Studio, my M365 apps, And you can see Word here. I haven't really tested much with PowerPoint or Excel yet, but if I did, you would see PowerPoint, you'd see Excel. So you can filter by all of these and see really that information that you want to get to. So really, really powerful going out there. And then this piece is nice. So I'm not sure if you all seen this or not. It wasn't really available. It was in the classic interface, but you really had to kind of search for it. But now we can say, you know what? Is web grounding being used for this particular prompt? So I can filter directly on that. So you can see here, no, these are the ones that don't have web grounding, not that much. And then one that did access web grounding, and that's of course going to be my agent that's reaching out to ESPN.com for that data. So a really great way to kind of look at that too. And get that information. Asset Explorer. So this is really kind of talking about things that are labeled, files, data sets. Now this would stretch across not only Office, but also talk about things in Office 365. It can also extend out to data lake. So things that live in Fabric can be in here as well. So there's be able to expand that out there. And then you can even see the agents that are out there and those agents that are used and the different assets that they're going to actually be looking at as well. So good information there. Not necessarily Copilot specific, but it is that DSPM, this preview is really kind of taking a lot of these things into a mix. So if you go back to that question we had at the beginning, we had Data Security Posture Management Classic and DSPM for AI Classic. And really what we're doing, if you notice, is we're taking these two things and we're combining it into this preview. So in Jay's crystal ball, now don't quote me on this, don't say Jay Cotton said this is what's going to happen, but I do believe that the classic, both of these classics will be going away at some point, and we're just going to have this DSPM, and it's going to cover all of it. It's going to cover all the AI activity, and it's going to cover these data security posture management, looking at the different data that you have in Fabric or what you have in Office 365, looking to see whether it's labeled, whether it's covered by policies for DLP or insider risk. All these are going to condense. So just be mindful of that one. And then data risk assessment. This is data risk assessment like we did before. Same thing in Classic. So this, we basically ported this over here. This is, again, scanning our SharePoint sites out there, looking for things that are shared with everybody, looking at whether things are labeled, sensitive information types that are out there. And this one, this is one of those big ones. So these anonymous external sharing links, we also want to be careful with that. Not necessarily Copilot related, but it could be depending on the use case. But we also, if people are sharing data externally from their OneDrives or their SharePoints, we want to make sure that they're not sharing data they shouldn't be sharing. So, if I see this and I see that they're actually sharing sensitive information out there, like maybe we have a custom set for PII or for patient data, and I see people are sharing these out anonymously or externally, that's a concern for me. So I'd actually take a look at that and go dive deeper in it. And then you can use this, of course, to actually go through and lock down these sites, remove that shared with everyone permission of the organization, actually block a SharePoint site from being accessed, all those types of things you have in there. And then the last piece to talk about here is our tasks. So this is pretty similar to what we were talking about in the beginning when you looked at Classic about these are the things to do to make sure you're doing this in the right way. It's going to give you basically recommendations about what to do. As you can see, very similar to what we saw before, extend your data insights, install that Purview extension. So again, we're taking those tasks and those things we want to make sure you're doing properly from the Classic interface and bringing it over to DSPM, the Preview interface. And then the last thing is our remediation actions. So our remediation actions are really there to guide us along. Hey, this is what we should be doing. And you can set up your policies directly from here. So once it's built, I'll give you a quick example. For instance, if you want to set up insider risk, or if you want to set up communication compliance, or you want to set up DLP, we can do it directly from here. So for instance, protect sensitive data referenced in Copilot and agent responses under data security. So you can see here, go to assessments. So it's actually going to say, you know what, go run that data risk assessment. So it's going to take me over to that portal. If I want to look at a policy for insider risk, I can do that as well. So this is talking about insider risk to test risk CIA usage. So I can create that policy directly from here, or I can actually just create it and look at it. You can modify the policy. I just click here, and it's going to go through and create an insider risk policy. This is going to be the default policy, which means it's going to be looking at trainable classifiers for risky AI usage, which really entails prompt injection attack. They call it prompt shields, and basically accessing protected data. So that would be data that's been copyrighted and the rest of people trying to use Copilot to get on that too. So really great there, and it creates it directly for me. So you can see here, it actually creates that alert. I go to policy details. You can see it's turned on. Risky AI usage, it's a template it used. And I can click right here, and it's going to take me over to Insider Risk. And I can actually view that policy, view my alerts, and all the rest. So that is, it kind of gives you that one-stop shop to do it. And you can see this is the one I just created off the top of the bat. This is one I created for testing for another customer. But you can see here, it creates that for me. I can edit it directly from here. It does use a default template. So if you want to go back and modify it, easy peasy, just click on edit. You can go through and modify that particular policy as you go. So that's the recommendation piece, and it's you can see it's quite verbose and quite lengthy. There's a lot of recommendations in here, and this is really kind of there to keep you on track, making sure that you have a punch list. I mean, we're engineers, most of us are. We like our punch list. We like being able to say, okay, I need to do this, 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 and then notice it also comes out as things that are completed. So when I have a completed topic, it'll show you the completed one. Here's that insider risk policy. So you also have a tracking mechanism. It comes often. I'm working with customers and their management says, okay, customer X, Y, and Z SOC team, what have you done to help us protect Copilot interactions when it comes to sensitive information types or whatever it may be? And we can basically say, you know what, here's what we've done. We've got these policies set up. You don't have to really even explain too much of it. You can say, you know what, here's our screenshot. These are all the different policies we have up. And this is the explanation of what they do. So it gives you that nice guided walkthrough and that kind of a project list of what you need to do to make sure you're using Copilot and Purview in a secure and safe manner. Okay, I talked a lot there. I did go a little bit over. Are there any questions from anybody? Feel free to come off of mute. Everybody's microphone is now active. If you want to ask a question, go ahead. We had a bunch of good questions. I think we've got them all covered up. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Stuart, for putting in there too. Any questions for anybody? All right. Well, thank you all so much, everybody. It's a great kickoff to the series. I hope you enjoyed the session. Remember, please, please, please register for our additional sessions coming up. I will send an email with all this in here, but I'm going to drop this link in here one more time so you can register for the other sessions. And we have a lot of data, just to go back on that one, to kind of give you the preview of what's coming. More slides than I usually do. This is what we have. So a lot of great sessions coming up. So please join us. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And please register for the other sessions. I will be sending an email out shortly. So please keep an eye out for that one. It'll have all the links I referenced, plus this deck, and then a short survey too. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your time off. And we'll see each other next week. Same time, same channel. Thanks, everybody. Let's go, Pats, indeed.